Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Around the Table GTA. I was testing some things and I always talk about potentially putting up bloopers, but that's just more work. Either way, this episode is going to be about intent and setting goals early. You could probably notice that I haven't dropped anything for a month, but I still have the goal of 52 episodes this year. That doesn't mean I have to do one every week, but it means that the content is basically once a week. Whether I do it once a week or 4 episodes a week or switch things up when I'm feeling different is entirely there. But the intent is to do that much content. And that's the reason why setting a goal early makes a lot of sense. When you set a goal early, it gives you purpose, right? There is purpose behind a goal initially, but when you set it early, you can make it something that's on your mind, and you could also do something to make it flexible. We all know that life fluctuates, right? I've had a pretty strange month since my last episode. I was going for more stuff that potentially agitate people or are difficult to talk about. But after certain things happened, I did not feel like doing any of that. And just the things that were going on in my life, it just made me not want to do any more episodes, at least for a while. I needed a break and I needed to focus on different things. And with that, I found new joy. And I also noticed that I was missing, I was just missing doing this, right? It's feels more like a personal time, a personal space for myself to not only talk about a topic, but also talk to my audience on a level that sometimes it does feel like it's one on one. Am I physically in the room with any of you who are listening to this? Sometimes, right? But most of the time, I'm not. Unless it's a guest episode or if somehow I'm doing a live episode. Like when I did the Instagram episode, which is an Instagram exclusive. I've been pretty lazy on trying to extract that, but I think it was a good episode, so I should probably take more charge into doing that. And the thing about intent is it it's a driver to do a lot more in your life. Like, for example, a lot of my episodes, except for maybe this one, because I'm actually trying to have some breaks and revisiting how my mood feels at times, it's one shot. So my episode that is 10 minutes is 10 minutes me talking straight, then going to edit, then posting it up. 20-minute episode, the same. 40-minute episode, the same. So that takes a toll. And when you have intent, sometimes you take yourself out of the equation and you have to turn yourself into a coach or even like a manager of yourself to see, hey, is this the right call? Is this the right play? Is this the best way to do your content, right? When you manage someone, you see what their skills are and you kind of hone in on what they're doing well and what they shouldn't do. It's the best way to grow because the coach teaches whoever the coachee is, and then the coachee also expresses how it is or how they feel about the situation. Sometimes you have a mentor or somebody you look up to that's telling you to do things and it's completely out of your comfort zone, or you don't believe that you could do it. And sometimes analyzing or revisiting a scenario when someone tells you how something is, it's their understanding of it, right? But sometimes their understanding of it is how a lot of other people understand that, right? So the intent isn't there to say that you're doing a bad job or you have to do things differently, but it's also showing you how these things can potentially, I don't know why I said potentially like that, but potentially come off. And that might be what your problem is. Recently, I had a class where I was with a lot of different people who had similar job roles as me, but a lot of us had different mindsets and different ways we chose to deal with scenarios. And I was in a situation where I disagreed with a majority of the class. And it was interesting because so many people were against my train of thought. But when a couple of people came to defend my train of thought, whether it was their reputation or the job title that they had, it kind of showed you how there is a bit of a bias when people know what you do or don't know what you do, right? People didn't know if I was like a secret top manager or whatever, but some of the people who mentioned things after me had my full support because they didn't understand how people didn't understand my point of view because it seemed so simple to them, right? This is why they have those sayings, or you should not want to be the smartest person in the room. But there's nothing wrong with being the smartest person in the room, because being the smartest person in the room varies on the topic, right? Our lives are so different that sometimes we could only see one way until we're exposed to another, right? And coming from an area that wasn't the greatest, I didn't seem or want too much because I didn't think about too much because there wasn't much, if that makes sense, right? It's a lot of the same word, but when you start to explore, when you start to do different things, it shows you a new side of the world. And that's something I learned at a younger age, where I've heard a lot of bias about different types of people, but luckily I lived in an area, despite it not being the greatest, there was different types of people, and it exposed me to different types of culture, as well as a different set of ways to look at things. I'm going to talk a lot more about training because I've been pushing myself to adapt and be able to catch myself slipping, right? When you give advice, you want to also be able to take advice. And if you're not able to take advice, you're not going to grow, right? Even sometimes you could have advice that might seem bad, but it's the implementation of the advice. Sometimes you have good advice, but if you don't do it well, if you don't use it in the right scenario, you are going to lose. You are going to put yourself in an odd situation. And recently I've been learning how to, I don't know how to phrase it, but stabilize things in a sense, right? Some people don't want to see you as you see yourself. And sometimes you have to do things to make sure that people understand where you're coming from. And it's a mix of being straightforward, but being professional at the same time, right? And some people could see directness as rudeness, but at the same time, sometimes people see passiveness as weakness. And we need to understand the times where we should be a little bit more forward, because sometimes that's how we can either open up a relationship or get the promotion that you wanted, or let people understand that this is who you are and this is what you want to do. Sometimes it's best to be passive, be the quietest person in the room. Sometimes you have to use those methods to let people know what your intent is. If you're a very talkative, loud, somewhat obnoxious person, and I'm saying obnoxious because these are the terms that people tend to categorize people who talk a lot or who are loud, right? But if you're suddenly quiet, be quiet for a day. Take in your environment. Use silence as a guide to read the room, and you'll see you'll notice people pick up on it, and it can potentially change how people view you, or it could create a conversation, right? Sometimes we need to be the opposite of what we portray, right? And I like to use work as a great example, and it's because I tend to be at work most of the time, right? But I have a very strong work persona where some people, if they saw me outside or they caught me outside, they would never expect it. Why? Because I like to be viewed a certain way, right? But at the same time, that has backfired me. I would use a recent example, but I'm going to save it for a later episode because sometimes you have to change the dynamic and let people understand that, hey, just because I might seem this way doesn't mean I'm this way all the time. Or I might just be this way because I feel in this situation it's very necessary. Just to use an example, a pop culture reference, which is mildly dying at this point, but it's still the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake, right? Kendrick always talks about being the artist versus the person that he is, right? And in 2024, we saw the person that he can be, right? And he chose to be that way because he didn't want to be in a situation any longer, right? But at the same time, it might have changed the view of people of him who liked him, right? Sorry, I stumbled on words, but basically, it changed the perspective on who he is. Some people thought that it was badass. Some people thought, wow, maybe he's a fraud. There's a lot of varying decisions and everything like that. So I'm not saying that having a persona or acting a certain way is fake, but sometimes that's how people see it if they see you in another way afterwards. So it's very important to make sure that the intent is there. And if you do a switch up, right? Very common in certain communities, code switching, realizing that there are consequences to it, but it depends on how much you care. Recently, I got advice about caring and not caring, and it's helped me to stop and try to balance the things out where should I care about something and why should I care about it or not? And is caring about it making me a better person, or is it robbing me of opportunity because I'm seen in a certain way? And it's good to reflect sometimes, right? Not even sometimes, it's good to reflect often and when things are changing or seemingly changing, right? I have a mindset podcast, but sometimes my mind pet set doesn't change. My mind pet, the the pet in my mind that I need to tame so that I could think straightly. Sorry, sometimes I keep these bloopers and mistakes in it just to show I'm not perfect either, right? We do a lot of things where we want to be seen a certain way, and sometimes we are seen a certain way, and it's not a good thing, or it could be a good thing, or it kind of like bites you in the ass, right? I was talking about this recently, where um, I go really hard when I'm focused on something, right? So if it's what I do versus what someone else does, yeah, I'm gonna start editing more in the next episodes. I'm just happy to be on the mic, but I'm a competitive person who rarely gets to be competitive, right? So in the times that I do get in a competition, I'm running. I'm running like boots on the floor right away. I got brand new shoes. I'm running around. I'm a kid at recess. I have the intent to be the best that no one ever was, right? And some people see it as facetious. Some people see it as showing off. Some people see it as me thinking I'm better than them. guess what? I want to be better than you if I'm not better than you. So that's the heart of my competitive lifestyle when it comes to me competing, right? I don't want to be number two. I want to be number one, and I have to see how we get there because being number one is the goal, right? And having that intent, you have to hone on your intent every aspect of you choosing to be the best or whatever your goal is. You need to make sure the intent is there. When the intent is there, you could say what you're intending, right? But are you showing what you're intending? Frustration brews from not being able to head to your goal, or whatever it is that you're trying to do is interrupted somehow. How do we deal with that? Setting goals. That's how you do it, right? What's blocking your goal? Okay, I want to do A, B, and C, but this part of the goal is not working. What's our intent? We have to go back and see why we're trying to do all of this in the first place. And that's something that's going to keep us grounded, right? That's why journaling is really good, as much as I don't really like journaling. That's why I like using sticky notes instead. Why? Because they're little reminders that you could place wherever you want to show that, hey, these are the things that I want to do. I've been looking at people's wish list, as weird as it sounds, because I am a person that saves money and gets what I need to get, and then I move on, right? But having a wish list shows the intent of all the things that you want. It shows all the things that you want, and then it can help you go back and realize, hey, is this something that I really want? But it's also showing the world that, hey, these are things that I want. Buy it for me. Help me get it. Remind me about it, right? So I think for me, my intent in this is to show you how to hone in on intent, but for me to also revisit this when I find myself lost and aimless. In the next couple of episodes, I'm going to be talking about different things. I know last time I said, what did I say? I said I was going to talk about controversial stuff. I don't feel like that right now, but I have a list, and it's been a while that I've made a list, but I do have a list of topics that I want to talk about. And one is something that's a long time coming because it's a reality that we face every day, which is time passing by. And it's crazy that it's been a month since I dropped an episode, but it's also crazy that we're almost halfway through the year. I think that's insane, right? And with that happening and me realizing it, it's put a little bit of a fire on my ass to get going, right? To keep moving and to put more intent in the things that I do value. There was a good chunk of time where I just stopped doing a lot of things. Why? Because I felt that there was no value in it, right? And it kind of made me feel empty at times just because it's just like, wow, this is what you're using your free time on. Imagine if you had like 7 kids or something. Not even 7 kids. Let's just say 1 kid. You know, a lot of people say life ends when you have kids, right? But imagine thinking about all the free time that you had and you wasted on silly things, right? Earlier in the week, I was just feeling super sad and I don't know why, right? I had some pretty good experiences, right? But I think it's the mix of winter depression, which is going to be leaving soon because it is officially spring. But at the same time, it certain events made me feel aimless, and I'm going to talk about certain things or those things in the next episodes to come, right? Hopefully you do enjoy this type of content. If you do, make sure you like, subscribe, share it. I'm going to be using more free time to do things for myself and by myself, just to kind of clear up my mind with a lot of things that have been bothering me. You know, sometimes you need that silence, sometimes you need that seclusion, but understanding that the intent is for you to get better, to have better clarity, to set your goals and get there and to push forward. A little secret that I tend to use is when it feels like time is passing by quickly, I tend to make goals. Why do I do that? Because if the time is moving fast, then I'm going to get to my goals quicker than when time's going slow. That's the best time, right? Because you could see that time is moving quickly. Why not use this as stepping stone to getting to your goals quicker? Make that trip, work on your summer body, get that extra job, work those extra hours. Why? Because time's moving fast. Anyways, all that pain, that grief, all those things that you feel that come with things taking too long are going to seemingly disappear because we're in a tunnel of time where things are going by faster. If you're upset, do the things that people say is good for you so that you get your mindset straight as soon as possible. If you're feeling better, go live and love life. The middle of last week, it was basically summer. It was almost 20, and I didn't stop to waste any time. All I did was like, oh, it's hot outside. I'm getting my bike. I'm going cycling. I love cycling, right? That was my mindset. I was just an agent of like, I'm gonna go cycling. I did 13K. I felt amazing, and it's prepping me for a great and vibrant summer, right? My last summer, like you guys know, was pretty ass. Didn't get in all the details, and it doesn't matter anymore. Why? Because we beat it. We're in a better position now, and we gotta live life like that. Where, hey, did something happen that sucked? Yeah, but did things happen that were awesome? Yeah. So let's focus on more awesome things, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.